Hello everyone, welcome back to Fairly Critical. I'd like to welcome you to the first list video of our channel. Before we begin, I just want to say how much of a blessing it is for you guys to take time out of your day and watch our content. We really appreciate it. It makes the effort that we go through to do all of this so worth it. If you do like this video or any of the other videos we've put out so far, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with any of your friends, so that way we can grow it and take it to newer places. Thank you again for watching. It is a huge boost to the channel and my own personal morale, so thank you very much. Doctor Strange released in theaters earlier this year to mixed reviews from fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm not going to do a full review over the movie. There's been tons of them done already. But it seems like for everything there was to love about the movie, there was also a counterpoint and a reason to dislike it. So for the next few minutes or so, we're going to discuss a handful of those good and bad ideas as we look at 5 good things and 5 bad things about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Number 1, easy to understand, but ridiculously fast pace. The concept of the multiverse is complicated, and its explanation can be very confusing if done poorly. There was a concern in the back of my mind that the exploration of time travel and extra dimensions in the Marvel landscape would make things a little too convoluted for the average moviegoer to experience. Thankfully, this movie didn't do that. It did a great job showing the existence of other realities and other multiverses, other realities in the multiverse without losing the audience. As strange as it sounds, when the characters quickly switch from animated cartoons to puzzle pieces to paint of all things, I didn't have to question why that happened. It just made sense. Bravo. Unfortunately, all that multiverse jumping really crowded the script, leading to pacing issues. Multiverse of Madness clocks in at a respectable 2-hour and 6-minute runtime. When you take into account the credits and the post-credit scene, that probably comes closer to about an hour and 50 minutes. While that hour and 50-minute time frame really protects it from major criticisms that the Batman or Avengers Endgame got with regards to long drawn-out runtime, it opens up to a different critique when you think about just how much went into that hour and 10-minute time span. There is so much that happens in this movie that adding another 10 to 15 minutes of runtime would have been warranted to allow us to digest what happened. This is a movie that wants us to feel the lamentations of Steven and Christine with regard to their relationship, Wanda's pain at losing her children, and America Chavez's fear of Wanda herself. But the movie runs along at such a fast pace that we barely get the opportunity to feel what it wants us to convey. When you have the dramatic powerhouses of Elizabeth Olsen, Rachel McAdams, and Benedict Cumberbatch, and you still cannot connect your audience emotionally to the plot, you know you messed up. Number 2, directed by Sam Raimi and directed by Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is a good director. He knows how to tell a story and get us from A to B. But you can say that about most name brand directors. If you can't, then they probably aren't directors for long. What sets directors apart from each other is the unique style of movie they create, and Multiverse of Madness is certainly a Raimi film. From cheesy dialogue choices, abundant lighting, even in chase sequences, fade-ins of Wanda overlaid across the scene instead of cutting to her, heavy use of rock guitar giving us Evil Dead flashbacks, Raimi's signature is on this film from the moment it begins to the moment it ends. If you are a fan of Raimi, or Bruce Campbell, you probably thought this was a boon to the production. If you are not, then you were probably left wanting. Number 3, balances character screen time well, but Wong is a bit of a doormat. This is something Marvel has historically done very well. It could have been very easy to focus more time on supporting cast and make the titular character feel like a footnote in his own movie, especially with the introduction of America Chavez, who soaked up a fair amount of screen time. Instead, we got a movie that does not over or underuse any of its main cast. Unfortunately, certain characters really don't have a point to them, narratively speaking. Before I go in depth here, I want to say that I like Wong as a character, and I really like Benedict Wong's portrayal of that character. That is why what I'm about to say is really frustrating. Overlooking Strange's dabblings with the Darkhold is completely nonsensical. Let's wind this back. In the first movie, Wong tells Strange that he cannot read certain books which are too advanced for him. A couple minutes later, Strange steals the books while Wong jams to Beyonce. Whatever. It's funny. It's not narratively significant for them to take offense. It works. In Spider-Man No Way Home, Strange wants to use a mind-erasing spell that is dangerous, and it is revealed to us that Wong is now the Sorcerer Supreme. Wong's job is now to protect reality, and he rightly warns Strange against casting the spell. He eventually gives in to Strange's emotional appeal on behalf of Peter, but also trusts that Strange is skilled enough to pull the spell off. And why wouldn't he? He was the former Sorcerer Supreme. That I can also buy into. But in Multiverse of Madness, Strange legitimately reads and casts what is specifically stated in the film to be the most reality-breaking spell there is. And it's found in a book that is known to corrupt those who read it. Strange shows up by puppeteering a dead and decaying version of himself, and Wong simply says, I don't want to know. I don't want to know? Sorcerer Supreme, Guardian of Reality, doesn't want to at least discuss this immensely dangerous, possibly reality-shattering action his pupil is taking? And taking right in front of him. I mean, there's no hiding it. It's right there. I mean, are you kidding me? Admittedly, it seems, I mean, there's other things going on in the film. There's other immediate threats. Surely he'll talk about it later on in the film after they've dealt with Wanda, right? Wrong. Instead, they have a leisurely stroll through Carmitage, and Wong tries to cheer Strange up like he just lost a hamster. This man just read and practiced a spell from the Book of the Gosh Darn Damned. He needs to be debriefed and possibly interrogated for any hint of corruption. He doesn't need Wong to put a hand on his shoulder and offer him a juice box. Freaking Carmitage security needs to be surveilling the ticking time bomb that is Stephen Strange at all times. That Minotaur needs to be attached to Strange night and day, and a backup team needs to be in place for when he is inevitably killed in horrifyingly violent fashion. Some hard choices need to be made by the Sorcerer Supreme in this moment, but instead we get, how you doing, bud? You okay? Outbursts aside, it does make more narrative sense for Wong and Strange to have at least a little conflict here. It doesn't have to be full-on containment protocols, especially since the movie's almost at its end, but a little warning would have gone a long way to setting up some friction leading into the next film, where apparently Strange is going to team up with Dormammu, or at least there is a threat of Strange working with Dormammu. A threat that we would take a lot more seriously if Wong was already weary of Doctor Strange. Number 4, the fight scenes are great, but the movie has an identity problem. The fight scenes and action scenes in this film are very well choreographed and executed, and they also are a little bit more creative when compared to most other MCU films because they can utilize magic. The musical note fight at the end is admittedly pretty strange, but you cannot say that it isn't unique and entertaining. Watching Strange break a bus down and then reassemble it piece by piece around a giant tentacle was really cool, and Wanda's destruction of the Illuminati is amazing to watch. While you could argue that the Caecilius fights from the original Doctor Strange gave us a little more to look at visually, that doesn't take away from the action in this movie, which compared to the rest of the MCU's more grounded engagements, was really cool to see and very engaging. The action is cool, but it is a little much for a horror movie. The Multiverse of Madness does attempt to be a horror movie for the large part of its runtime. A significant horror movie trope that Multiverse attempts to employ is that the monster, in this case Wanda, is an unstoppable force, one that you just can't contain and can't stop. She'll do anything she needs to, no matter how much pain she causes to the other characters, in order to complete her goal. While a couple of these action sequences do help set Wanda up as the unstoppable force of will, they also take us out of the feeling of horror or suspense due to the very spectacle that they are putting on. The movie starts out as a horror film as America and Strange Supreme flee a demon, turns into a standard superhero film when our Strange kills the tentacle monster, turns back into a horror film when Scarlet Witch breaks through Carmontage's defenses, switches again when the Darkhold is destroyed and Wong has to be threatened and tortured, turns back when Scarlet Witch assaults the Illuminati base, and finally finishes as a standard superhero movie when Strange assaults Wanda's throne at the end. And before you say anything, just because Strange looks horrifying in the scene does not make this a horror movie. And before you say anything, just because Strange looks horrifying in the scene does not make this a horror movie. To be fair, it is not unusual for the end of a horror movie to have a more action climax to it. As protagonists in horror movies typically decide that they must confront the monster that is chasing them at the end. However, the final confrontation is normally the first time that the movie turns into an action film to finish it off, not the fifth. Also, when that decision by horror characters is made, it is normally because they've either learned of a way to defeat the monster or have at least developed some type of plan to give themselves an advantage when confronting it. This goes out the window when the Book of Ashanti is destroyed at the end of the second act in Multiverse of Madness. And the plan becomes to basically attack Wanda with all they have. Mind you, at this point in the film, Wanda is in her stronghold with bodyguards, has at least one hostage, and is at her full power. There are no advantages to be had by Strange, yet he goes to attack her anyway. You can also not say that the alternate version of the Darkhold gives Strange a power boost, since all he used it for was to put himself in control of Strange Supreme's body in the Earth 616 universe. Strange Supreme's body could have easily been replaced by a statue or a suit of armor, and the plot and genre would have remained the same. Taking a fight to a villain, even if you think you are going to lose, is a common trope used in superhero films. But in this one, they only end up winning because America spontaneously gains control of her powers after Strange gives her some cliche dialogue. While the ending is not necessarily bad, it definitely doesn't belong in a horror movie like the rest of the movie attempts to portray. It belongs in a superhero film, just leading to the ever-present identity issues that this movie had between superhero and horror flick. And number 5, shows the power of the Scarlet Witch, but undoes the emotional arc of WandaVision. The Scarlet Witch has long been one of the most powerful characters in Marvel Comics, and many fans, myself included, have been waiting for the MCU to show us this power on screen. We got close in Endgame when she 1v1s Thanos, but this movie took that fight and turned it up to 11. Her manipulating the young sorcerer in Carmontage to flee, dragging others through reflections into the mirror dimension, and most impressively, her dismantling of the Illuminati in the second act gave us a show of just how horrifyingly capable she is, and I loved it. I hope we get to see that again at some point, because it was truly spectacular. It is understandable that you don't want her to be so powerful all the time, as she would just go around solving everyone's problems if she was that powerful every time you saw her. It did match perfectly with making her a villain, though, as she is now the problem that has to be overcome. That awesomeness does come at a price, though, as the emotional arc of WandaVision had to be somewhat sacrificed to make it possible. WandaVision was glorious. Simple as that. It was great. While you don't necessarily need to have watched the Disney Plus limited series to understand the movie, it certainly would have helped, but it also would have left you with some questions and maybe a little confused, since Wanda ends that show accepting the loss of Vision and the 2 children she created in her fictionalized world after the death of her sympathozoid lover. The final moments of the show's narrative show her flying off after an emotional goodbye to her family, where she finally moves into the 5th stage of grief, acceptance. The show does have a cutscene showing her looking through the Darkhold and hearing the cries of her children, indicating that the Book of the Damned may be manipulating her for nefarious purposes. How we go from that to full-on villain looking to kill a young girl in order to find two children that only ever existed in her grief is not well realized. To many fans of Wanda, this was nothing short of character assassination and the complete disillusion of her development in the 9-episode miniseries. The shame of it is that she could have still been the bad guy in this movie if the first act would have shown us how she descended into madness. But sadly, her abrupt turn left many of us with a sour taste in our mouths and an angry feeling in our hearts. And there we go, my friends. That is Fairly Critical's list of 5 good things and 5 bad things about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I hope that you enjoyed that list. Let me know if you guys agree with what we had, or if you disagree with what we had, if you can think of any others. There's plenty more to talk about this movie. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. As a reminder, we are now releasing movies, or rather videos, on a weekly schedule. Next week's will be a movie review. I haven't quite determined what movie it will be. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I am wrong. Next week's will be a review of Bullet Train, the next Brad Pitt flick. It looks hilarious. It looks awesome. I cannot wait. And hopefully you guys are thinking about seeing it as well and will enjoy our video. Before I sign off, I just want to thank you guys again for spending the time to watch this. Please do hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe to the channel. Please share it with your friends. It really does help us out. You are such a blessing so far, and hopefully you'll enjoy our next round of videos. I will leave it there, though. Thank you very much. I am your host, Jacob, for Fairly Critical. You have a wonderful day.